machine. Just a second. Let this start. So before this machine starts, I'll just briefly tell you guys what uh, are we going to do today and things that will be covering. Okay. So today we'll understand about Python socket programming. Very basic we'll learn. Okay. Right. In real-time examples, I mean real-time scenarios, it is very less used. But sometimes what happens when you're doing red team operation jobs or like you're doing testing on platforms or internal testings, that time the firewall blocks all these things. The firewall, then even the Windows Defender, they block. So that time we have to programmatically make our exploits, right? And then when I say programmatically make our exploit, then we should also write a program that can help us to import any file into the target OS. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So let's learn something. Shit, yeah, this laptop is falling. So let's learn about what is socket. So before I tell you about socket, earlier when there was ARPANET, you know what is ARPANET, right? AR ARPANET.
Yeah.
ARPANET was
Yes.
one internet type, one type of internet that was used for closed loopings, closed internet connections. Nowadays it is called intranet. So this ARPANET was basically based on DOS. And now since computers had to communicate with each other, they had to send some data over a wired channel, right? So ARPANETs were basically used that time a lot. And when the computers would communicate each other, for example, like in those times, there was nothing called a file transfer protocol, port number 21 and all. There were rules and regulations. Now, rules and regulations means sockets and APIs. There were certain socket APIs created by these people who were using ARPANET that time. So when they would had to send a file, when they had to transfer a file to some of their person sitting on some other floor, they had to mention the destination, and along with the destination, they had to mention the type of file, along with the type of file, and uh, along with the type of file, and also the file size. It did not 100% file size, but yeah, they had to mention. Now, for the authentication purpose. Now, for example, just consider one thing, like I'm sending you a file and you're just downloading the file blindly. The reason is our devices have already authenticated each other in such a way that they trust each other's, right? In that time, there were no such authentication mechanism. Like person sending a file, it would directly go to that person or go to somebody else also. But unintentionally, you send to somebody and you cannot retrieve it back also, right? So that's why these sockets were introduced. Now, Python has a very importance for socket programming. So here in this today's class, we'll learn about the socket. To ho hi gaya apna. Then the next thing is what we'll learn is the types of socket APIs that are there in Python API. And the third thing what we'll be learning is about the client and server. We'll try to create a client and server socket and see how it works. Now there are different types of socket modules in Python. There is a module called as socket module only in Python, which was once upon a time proprietary, but now it is okay. There is somebody joining. Okay, Harsh is there. Perfect. So there are different types of socket modules here in Python. So the first one we have is called socket. Then we have something called as bind. Then we have something called as listen. Then we have something called as accept. Then connect. Then send, receive, and close. Okay. So I'll tell you each and every one step by step. Okay. So socket, bind, listen, all this you can consider, all this you can relate with the TCP/IP three-way handshake model, right? First, to send a request to this, like the client request something to this, and then okay, what happened? Am I facing internet issues? Hello, Harsh. Welcome. Right. Yes. Okay. Let's continue now. So everyone is there. We have full house. So just consider this as a three-way handshake, TCP/IP three-way handshake first. We'll learn about this. Okay, like since I know you guys know all these topics, I'm just giving a brief description, explanation of this. So when I say about three-way handshake, I want to request something to Aryan. So first I'll just say, hi Aryan, I want something, I want this particular object from you. Aryan won't directly send it to me. If Aryan knew me before, he would send, but Aryan won't send it to me. Aryan will validate as in along with my request, I'll be sending some validation keys to Aryan. Aryan will validate it, and then Aryan will search in his database wherever it is, where is the file, and then he'll acknowledge back, hi Sahil, I know you, the file. So once Aryan sends the acknowledgement along with the file, I send a response saying, thank you, Aryan, for accepting my connection. Now, all these methodologies are done using Python socket only. Now, before that, I'll just show you a diagram of Python socket. Once again, a Python socket programming diagram. Perfect. Now, this is how Python socket programming diagram works. So each and every steps are there. So first what I'll do is I'll explain you each and every modules what are there in Python. Okay. And then we'll go step by step. So the first one is called socket. Now socket is used to create a socket, like to start a connection. Then we have something called as bind. Bind is bind basically tells the socket to use a specific address and to use a specific port number. Like we have 1 to 1024 ports, right? Basically, we have total 65,535 ports, out of which 1024 are well-known ports. So outside these ports, whatever you want to do about them, you are free to use. Free to use as in like you can use it for all your work, like whatever you want. But the first class of ports, they are well-known ports. That is, they're specifically associated or specifically told to do that particular work on that particular port number. Yes. Now the bind means you bind the socket or you associate or you interlink the socket to the with an address and port number. Address is nothing but your IP address. Okay. And then the next part is once you start like to start something, we need to create a listener, right? Like I am speaking and you guys are listening to me. That is you are accepting the incoming messages what I'm telling you, right? So this basically happens on the clients on the server side. Okay, listen, and also on the server on the client side. Both sides you have to use to listen to the replies or listen to the messages that are being exchanged. So here, this is nothing but starting listener for to listen connections, and then we have something called accept. Now, accept is once the communication is validated, there is a mutual understanding between me and Aryan that okay, fine, I know Sahil and Sahil knows Aryan very well. So there is no such of another layer of what you say. security authentication done. So accept is nothing but when I send once the authentication done, and the second time when I send some request to Aryan saying, Aryan, I want your laptop. Aryan will just blindly reply to me saying, okay, Sahil, I'll give you a laptop to me. So basically here you can say accepting connection from the sender. Sender in this case, you can say it as a client also. Okay. The next thing is connect. Connect is used to establish a connection. That's it. To start a connection, or you can just say establish a connection. Once all these three processes are done, your connect comes to picture. So connect basically is used to establish a connection uh, to that particular socket, or to that particular server, or to that particular destination or target, whosoever you want to name it. Okay. Then the next thing that we have is called send. Send is used to send the data, and receive is to receive the data. Yes. Then the last one we have something close. Close means once I'm done teaching you, so we do not continue with the meeting, right? We disconnect. So you can just say you can just consider close to like disconnect the entire socket, or you can say closing the socket connection. Yes. So all these parameters are clear to you. Any questions? Aryan, Harsh, Varad. No, sir. Okay, let's continue. So don't start programming right now. I'll share the details. Okay. Aryan, please remind me to share you the notes. Okay. I always forget to share. Yeah. Just a second. Let me drink water. Okay. So now let's programmatically do it, everything. The first what I'll do is in my Kali Linux, what I'll do here is I'll create my Kali Linux as a client and my Windows machine. I'll create my Kali Linux as a client and my Windows machine as a server who will exchange data among each other. Okay. So this is client, my Kali Linux machine. Yes. So first we'll try to follow all the steps. Now, before we start, I'll just show you. Okay. So we have client and we have a server. So let's start from the top to bottom. Okay. So the first thing when you do in a server is you create a socket, you bind that particular socket. I'll programmatically show you guys, okay, how we do binding and all. You bind that particular socket to a specific address and a port number. That is, when a client wants to access some data from the server, so the client will directly enter the server's IP address and the particular port number on which that particular service or that particular file is present. And then we'll have something called as a listen. A listener will basically help you to listen. That is requests that are coming to you. Once the listener is there, then we set up something called as an accept. Accept is basically to accept a connection request. Okay. So this first four modules remain the same. Okay. Please note the first four modules remains the same. Similarly, the first three modules, socket, connect, send. So socket, basically you create a socket. So just remember one thing, the server and the client may have same socket or different sockets. Okay. Based on your testing parameter. And then you connect to a particular connection. Now this particular connection that you connect is basically is going to be your server ka IP address and your port number that you want. So first all this three-way handshake will be done in this particular phase only. Next step what happens is the client will send the data and the server will receive the data. It will process it. Whether the data is legitimate to be processed, how it can process, that is up to server, how it does this. Okay. Once the server processes the data, it will send it to the client with the send module saying, okay, fine, I know what you want. I'll send it to you. He will receive it. and then he will send it back with a reply saying, okay, fine, please give it to me. So this is a never ending, this is a looping process. Can you see this? Receive, send, receive, send. So here, whatever the communication happens will keep on going on till both of them are done with their task. Okay. Next thing what happens is, once the desired output or the desired data that the server wanted is received by the client, I mean, the client is received from the server, he will send a close request. Close request matlab he will close the connection with him. Okay, so he will send a close request that will be received by the server, and the server will also close the particular connection. That's why when you observe, when we send when we send some files using FTP, initially till you do the authentication, do the everything, it will keep on working. Once you say close connection or close port or close brackets, then it will directly close it. Yes. So this is a general way how server and a client works. So each every step will programmatically write it for the server and for the client. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll do vice versa. I'll create my Windows machine as my client and Kali Linux machine as my server. Okay. Sorry for my pencil, whatever I'm using this. Let me see now. Okay, fine. Kali Linux machine. So what I'll do is I'll create a directory here. Listen to the test case. Okay, what I'm doing. I'll create a directory here which will have certain files in it. My Windows machine, that is my client, will go create a connection, start the socket, create the connection, listen, and everything he'll do and try to access this particular file and download it back to its machine. Usually there are multiple ways where we can do. Now this is a completely programmatical way what I'm going to be doing. Okay. So the first, I mean, the most simplest way we use is Python -http.server. So this creates a local server among you. But when we want to create a server that that has to download some remote files, that time we programmatically create. Yes. So this is the most shortest way. Python -m http.server. Here what happens is Python will create a socket. Like everything is pre-programmed. It also it uses the same modules like your this thing. So I'll just show you what it happens. Okay. So the IP address of this guy is now, since this is locally working, so all my directory listings are shown here. So it is locally working. But when I want to create something remote, that time I can use this programming approach. Yes. So let's start now. Am I going too fast? No, right? Hmm. Okay, I'll use gedit and then I'll just create python underscore server dot py. Okay. Now let's go step by step. Very clearly, I'm going to explain you guys very step by step. Okay. So the first thing that we do is we call the header file, that is py import socket. Okay. Now, once we say import socket, the next thing that we will be doing is we'll first mention two variables here. One is host and another one is port. Okay. So when I say host and port, here I'll have to specify the service or the particular port number. So right now my IP address of my Kali Linux machine is 127 so and so number. Okay. And then I can give a random port number. Here I'll give 5004 port number. Okay. So I created two variables called as host and a port, which will be basically defining our machine ka, I mean the server ka IP address and the particular port number. So variables to define the server IP and port for exchange. Okay. Now the next thing, as per the diagram, let's relate our all the stuff with this diagram. Next thing is we'll have to create a socket. To create a socket, I'll first create a particular, I'll create a variable called as serve, or we can call it as a server also, and call it as, and this is how you create a socket, socket. Okay. So comment, I'll write creating a socket. Now, once you have created the socket, we'll have to do one thing, right? What is the next step? We'll have to create a bind socket. Now, so binding this particular IP address with our machine, I mean, with the program. So process is very simple. I'll say binding the IP address and port number. Because the reason why I'm doing that is I did not mention the IP address for every time in the code. And even if I'm transferring the file, I'm working on the file, there can be n number of lines of codes here, because you write a code in such a way that even your antivirus or a Windows Defender doesn't say it's a malicious code, right? So this is how you create a bind shell. I mean binding first, host, then port number. Okay, so whatever is the argument that of host, that is the IP address, will be mentioned here along with the port number. What is the next thing? Listen. So we'll have to create a listen socket. Listen socket. That is server.listen. Okay. Now the next thing is we have to create a connection that will basically accept for all the requests that are coming. Right. So the argument to create a connection, let's say create a connection to accept the request from clients. Okay. So CONN, you can give anything, right? You can give anything. I'm just giving the random stuff what is there in the text books and the different people who use. Okay. Now your first module is created. Any doubt? So I'll briefly tell you guys, okay, what is happening here. So first we created a socket. We created two arguments or two variables, right? The first variable will store, the first variable will store your server ka IP address. That is my Kali Linux ka IP address, since I'm creating my Kali Linux as a server. And then the next thing that will be done is your port number. Your port number here, in this case, you can create any random port, but please remember nothing between 1 to 1024 port numbers, okay, because they're well-known ports. So sometimes your service may not work also, or your server may not work for that particular task, what you want to do with it. Then is we create a socket. So I created an argument called server, and then this is how you create a socket, socket.socket, and then you open the bracket. Okay. Next is we bind a particular IP address with the sockets. So 192.168, I can write it here, but why to write everything again and again? Yes. So your IP address and your port number on which that particular data will be exchanged or whatever will be exchanged will be bind to your particular socket. That is the variable that we have created is called server. Now the next thing is we have to, once we create a binding, we need to create a listener also, which will listen to all the requests that is coming from the client. So we created a listener. Yeah. And then we create a connection to accept the request. See, once request is accepted, that is after the three-way handshake, your data has to be processed, right? So this is how you create the first instance of it. Any doubt?
No, sir.
Pakka? No, sir. Am I going too fast? This is the standard process how you create a socket a server. Okay, I mean Python socket servers. Okay, this has to be there. If you don't create all these modules or this programmatically, then it won't even work for you. Okay. Now the next thing is we'll try to create a simple one. Yeah. So I'll use a while statement. While if the particular condition is true for me. Okay. Wait, I'll save this particular file. Need only. Okay, no problem. Okay. एक second. Huh? One second. No problem. So the first thing is we need to listen the data that is been coming. So we'll use this variable called as con, that is connection that I said, and then receive. So when I say receive, it can be any data. It can be alphanumerical data. It can be special characters. It can be anything. But in this, we need to set a particular string size. Okay. So by default, we always set it 1024, and then we say decode. Now decode is a function that is used in case if we plan to use any authentication here. Now, when I say authentication, like when I'm sending some data to Aryan, it it may not go in a plain text. It can be encoded and it can be sent. Now, this depends on the type of the socket module that you're using. If you're using Python 2, then still, yeah, Python 2 and Python 3 will send the data in a bit of encrypted format. But what I'll be doing is when I'll be creating this particular file, most probably in the next class, what I'll do is I'll try to show you how this particular data works. Okay, like how the three-way handshakes are working. We will be using a tool called as Wireshark for this. But today we'll just see how uh, the connections are getting established. Now, if the condition is true, then it will send. If not, then what? The data has to be processed, right? Matlab, If no data is sent by the user, I mean the client, then we need to stop it there and there. So just pay attention to this, what I'm doing. It's little bit of out of the box stuff. Wait, I'll finish writing the code, wait, or else I might forget the code. So here what is happening is, let's relate with our diagram. So once the particular connection has been accepted, all the three-way handshakes are cleared, the client has to receive some data. So we use this receive function here, which will be sent to the particular server's accept function module, and it will be a decoded data definitely, because the data that will come here from the client will be completely in an encoded format. So this encoding format is not related to cryptography as such, but it is something related to normal way of encoding and decoding. That is basically what happens is, if your file string is more than a specific word, here we have mentioned 1024 word, that is a default. If any file or any request that is above this, it will be compressed or decoded in a very smaller way, and it will be sent to you. Sent to you, matlab sent to the server. Now, once this is done, now if no data is sent, definitely, then it should break, right? It will break directly and it will close the particular connection. Now, once the data sent and the client has received a particular command from the server, command from the client, what the client will do is it will process it. It will see it is if it will see if it is a string data or an integer data or a floating data. Mostly in Python socket programming, what happens is your strings can contain alphabets, can contain special characters, can contain any numerical characters also, as well as your numbers. So there is nothing much difference from the other programming language. Then I created a print statement that is just to print and show like what the particular data is coming from the client. And then I created one more message here called as data input. So here, since the server has to reply back to the client, now since this is not a completely AI or special server that we have created, right? So we'll have to do it manually. So once the particular message is typed by the server, it will send it to the client. The client will receive it. Yes, and once all the things are done, it will create a close connection. Did you understand this phase? This what is happening here? You can
Yes.
relate it with this particular phase, this particular one, this 1, 2, 3, 4. Receive, send, send, receive, send, receive, all this. Here, there should be continuous data flowing between each other till one person gets bored of each other, or one person says, okay, fine, my work is done. We can close our connection. Yes.
So,
Any doubt?
no, sir.
Okay. Now see, there is see guys, there is a reason why we mentioned this 1024 SR string. See, when we'll be sending our payload files now, usually what happens is, when we send our payload files, this bloody antiviruses or this AMSI antiviruses, Windows Defender, they catch the files. They catch the files and they can block also. And the second thing is, if you they catch the file basically through normal approaches, the one which I showed you previously. But in this case, what happens is, if you don't mention the string size or the file size or the size, there are chances that the firewall can catch. The firewall can also catch. So by default, when we will be doing nmap scanning now, that time we'll come to know the firewall and the type of policies that the firewall is accepting. But by default, 1024 is a policy that is accepted by firewall, that any size of 1024 bits is allowed. Okay. Now this was about our server side programming. So I'll just close the program. I'll see if the program is saved or not. Okay, it is saved. One second now. I'll move this program. So let's check for the permissions. So it has just read and write permission, no execute permission. So we use chmod 777 to change the permissions, right? Let's try to execute and see if there are any errors coming. Okay, there is no error coming. It means it is working properly. Okay. Let's try to add one more line of code in that. That is a print statement just after here. एक second, what happened to my mouse? Okay, 1 second. My machine is what? काफी लिनक्स का ये प्रॉब्लम है, मशीन फ्रीज हो गया. एक मिनट था, मशीन ही फ्रीज हो गया. अरे इट फ्रोज अगेन यार. एक सेकंड ना. Okay, till then it is rebooting. We'll try to code the client side of the world. Okay. Now to code the client side, I can use a software called as Notepad++. Even if I don't have it, I'll install it very quickly. Okay, so Notepad++. Okay, it is working now. Perfect. Let's see. Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll write a message here called as print connection received from एक second. I think I'm missing out something here. This will have to give our loopback address. Okay, let's try to give this and see. Okay, because right now we are internally doing this process. अरे यार, एक मिनिट हाँ. आकाश, ये आर्यन, एक मिनिट गाइस, एक मिनिट हाँ. मशीनच फ्रीज झाला यार. इट फ्रोज. Okay, so let's start with the the client side now. So I'll open the diagram also. So side by side we'll start coding. Okay, you guys there or gone?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Then okay, this is Python client, Python client. So first we'll import the socket as usual. Then we'll create what to say, the host whom the connection has to be there. I think it should be always a loopback address because we are using internal IPs, right? So let's do one. Okay. Then I'll try to create a particular variable that will basically do all the processes for us. Earlier, we created a variable called as server, right? Now we'll try to create a variable called as CL. CL, basically, you can call it as socket also, as a client also. Okay, so first I create the sockets. It will save the file somewhere right now. Okay, so first we'll create the socket, create the socket. Then the next thing that we'll do is we'll we'll have to create one more socket for connect, right? Module. So the process is very simple. CL dot connect followed by the host name, the arguments, right, on which all the exchange will happen. Yes,
Yes, sir.
this is a little confusing, but once you start practicing, now you'll understand. Okay, then uh, we'll take an input parameter. Now in Python, we can use this function called as sorry, this argument called as message input. Enter your message. Okay, so whatever the user will enter the message basically will be saved in this particular variable, which is called message, or let's say, okay, let's say message only and see. So we have done this. We have done this. Now we'll have to create the send request, the send module, right? So we'll have to create a while loop. Now this is a while loop. If you closely see, right, till the process is true, it will keep on running. And once the desired task is done, it will stop the process, right? So the best way is to use a while loop for this. That's the reason I use while loop in the server side also of the program. So message is should be not greater than Okay, I'll tell you what is this. Just a second. I'll finish typing the. Once again, I'll finish typing this code and then I'll explain you guys step by step what is happening here. Okay. So what is happening here is till here you guys have understood, right? We create the socket, we create a connection. We in the connection we add the address and the port number on which the data has to be exchanged, and then we whatever message we enter will go in this particular message. Okay. Now the reason why I use QT is QT until unless I don't press QT at the end, it won't stop the connection, or else what will happen, the while loop will keep on going here. So that's why message is not equal to qt. Now for example, when I'm typing some message, I'm sending, and then the server is also replying to me. But now since I want to stop the connection, that is the client wants to stop the connection, I can say qt. Now if the message matches with qt, it will directly go out of the while loop and it will directly close the connection. Okay. Now, if the message is not equal to Qt, then it will just send the message, whatever it was typed. And then once the message is sent to the particular to the particular server, the message will be processed by the server. So if you closely observe, this particular line of code is almost same as the line of code what we have mentioned here also. Let's see if this stupid thing is working or not. This is the problem with Kali Linux. Doesn't work only at times. See, we almost created the same type of message here. I mean the file. I mean the arguments. Right? Where is it? Yeah. Now since this is in the while loop, till the user or the client enters Qt, it won't close the connection. Once the particular connection is closed by the client, the the client will receive that particular closed connection and directly it will go out, the server will go out of its loop, that is closing. So this is how you do the coding. Okay, I'll interlink here. Okay. You have any doubt? Do you guys any
No,
doubt
sir.
why I use Qt and all here? So let's try to execute this particular file first. That's the reason, Aryan, I told you to install Parrot. Parrot is more stable than this stupid shit. See, it's not working. Thing is gone. This is the end of Python from here. I mean, end of Kali Linux. Kali Linux will never succeed in life. Okay, the port numbers were also not same. Okay, fine. Let's try again. Let's see if it is really work changed or not. The code. Okay. Yes. Nare Baba. Okay. So to execute this one and see. Okay, where did I save it on desktop? Mhm. Okay. एक मिनट Disable settings, manage app execution analysis. Okay, okay. Right. 1 second. Let me figure out this. अरे ह्याच्यात पायथनच नाही. 1 second, guys. I'll install Python first in this. This is the worst part of using Windows and Kali Linux together when both are stupid. Nice. This had never. This. Nice. Give it a minute, okay? I'll talk to you guys. So, tip of the day: never use Kali Linux and Windows together. Both are never good couples.
Yes, sir.
Never use.
Okay. Okay.
Spe- especially especially Windows 11 or Windows 11. This is Windows
11,
11
11.
only.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But tell the company people to give a just a Linux machine, Ray. You saw the
Okay.
difficulty, no? What we face.
Yes. Yes.
Both the couples never go well.
Mm.
Okay, this is done. Now we'll try to install Python 2 also. Python 2. Python 2 is existing or dead? Okay, let's see.
There, sir. It's there.
It's there, huh? It's there. Okay, fine. This should work now. Let's see. Okay, it started. Connection refused. Line number 13. So line by line, we'll have to see the code. See, I had a very good machine here with Ubuntu. Unnecessarily they told to use this stupid shit. Doesn't work. Line number? Line number 13. Okay. Line number 13. No connection could be established to target. Refused. Why did the Kali Linux refused? Okay. Let's try to figure out the error also online. Yeah, 1 second. Hey, Baba. Come on, guys, help me find out the bug. What is the issue and how we can resolve it? Come on. What is the solution? They have not mentioned the solution only, the worst part. Well, so let's do one thing. Change this to. Yes, Aryan, say.
Sir, there is this line.
Line 13 error.
Like, no, sir. Like we did not use a TCP socket for communication, right?
This is normal socket I'm creating, not specifically TCP.
Okay.
There is some error which is throwing. I don't know what is that error. This is a problem of using Python sometimes. Okay. Let's see if this particular thing works. Port number is same, na? 5004. Port number is same. Let's try now. If it doesn't work, then we'll have to figure out some other alternative. cmd.exe run as administrator. Okay. It refused to do the connection. Connection refused. Let's figure out this error, okay? Why it is happening. Okay, we have done the same thing here. Same thing. Same thing. Oh, there is a firewall. Oh. Mhm. Same thing. Okay, let's try something else. Take minute, huh? We'll experiment something new. 1.10. हाँ, चलो let's try. It should work now. This connection refused. Line number 9 and 6. Line number 9. Now what happened to this? Line number 9, unexpected. What is unexpected here? Hmm. Guys, I'll do one thing. I'll figure out the mess, what is happening here, okay? Hmm. Till then, now we'll continue. Okay, we'll continue with the process. This I'll show you guys tomorrow what it is happening. I have to figure it out. धीरे. Okay, is it fine?
Yes, sir.
I'll try to figure it out. Okay, is it fine, Aryan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now briefly I'll glimpse you guys about the next topic. Okay, of the network scanning that we'll be doing. There is a nice notebook also available. I'll share with you.
From desktop LR9 DKML.
Sorry. Okay, so we'll be learning the first topic of the program called as information gathering. Okay, we have two types of information gathering. One is active and one is
Passive.
passive. Okay, now there are multiple tools where we use active and passive information gathering tools, or there are one tool also available in the market. When we are doing pay attention, when we are doing intranet testing, infrastructure testing, we use a tool called as Net Discover. You might have used this tool a lot. So what Net Discover does is Net Discover will tell you the types of IP address that is there in that particular subnet. For example, if my IP address is 10.10.1.100, and if I specify /24, what will happen is it will scan all the IP addresses which are associated in that 1.10.10.1 from 0 to 254 IP addresses will be scanned here. 255, sorry. Okay. So when you are working in intranet or infrastructure testing time, this Net Discover tool plays a very important role. And this tool is not noisy. You know what is called noisy, right? Noise.
Yes, sir.
That is, it won't create any logs or it won't create anything, because when we do ping is one such particular stupid tool that will basically create a lot of noise, and it will create a lot of noise during the authentication phase only. That is TCP three-way handshake authentication phase. Yes. So Net Discover is one such tool. Now coming to active and coming to passive. Now these two things are quite similar, not quite similar. You can say quite different also. But when we do active and when we do passive, एक second, I'm getting a call. Just a second, guys. Just a second. Eh, हाँ, 1 minute. I'll call you later. ठीक है, I'll call you later. Okay. So Let's continue now. I'm sorry for that, guys. These calls and they keep on coming. Okay. So active information gathering and passive information gathering. Now, active information gathering is you interact with the target. Basically, you can consider active information gathering more of like a white box testing only, where everything is given to you. Or to be on layman terms, you are directly interacting with the target. That is when you're performing port scanning, you perform a port scan and you come to know the particular port number that is working, right? So this is like you interact with the target. And passive is basically you don't interact with the target. That is, you collect information from third-party resources. Now there are multiple resources where you can use to get the information. That is, the very good one is Google. The second one is Shodan, right? In this, what happens is these people are interacting with the target, not you, right? So this is the only difference between active and passive information gathering. Now there are multiple ways. The first thing that we do is we always check for host discovery. You know what is host discovery? We see whether the particular host is alive or dead. Now, if the particular host is dead, then what is the use of doing pen testing? Yes or no? And to check the aliveness of the host, we use a normal command called as ping.
Yeah.
Now, ping commands, what happens is it's a basically like a type of a three-way handshake that basically it's dependent on TCP IP model. You know what is TCP IP and UDP, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You know it, right?
Yes.
Harsh, you know. So the best example of
Yes, sir.
TCP in if anybody asks you what is can you give a good example, or if somebody doesn't want a technical example or technical explanation, then you can just say, sir, UDP is more like India Post and TCP IP is more like a delivery.com or DHL, where the packet is sent or where the packet is sent to that particular send to the receiver is acknowledged to the sender also. Whereas in UDP, what happens is when the packet is sent from the sender to the receiver, there is no guarantee whether the packet will reach or not. Just like India Post. Yes.
Yes.
So now TCP has different types of flags. One is SYN, then ACK, FIN, and
URG.
RST. URG also, yes, URG is also there, and FIN is also there, RST, and PSH. Okay,
Yes.
so SYN is a
Six.
synchronous flag. So synchronous flag will basically initiate the connections between the client and the server. ACK is for acknowledgement. Acknowledgement, matlab, if if I've sent some date package to Aryan, Aryan will acknowledge saying, hey, Sahil, I've received a package from you. Thank you. Like that. Yes. Then we have Fin. Fin is basically finish. So it tells the client that tells the server that the client has done his work. He doesn't need you anymore. So he's closing the connection. It's a finish. Like I don't want to talk more. RST stands for resetting the connection. Now reset is not very widely used when three-way handshake happens. Yeah. The next one is something called PSH.
Push.
Push is basically used to send, is used by the sender to send all the data faster. Now, please pay attention. When you're using this push function, especially in Nmap, now what happens? The high chances that the firewall will block it. Very high chances. So the only way to do is we fragment the packets. When I say fragment the packets, if it is 1024 packet, it will be fragmented in another chunks of data. So at least in one go, if the packet goes in one go, it won't be blocked by the firewall. It will be restricted. It won't be restricted by the firewall. It will just go, but will take a lot of time. Okay. So this was about the synchronous flags what we have. I mean, the different types of TCP IP flags. Do I need to tell you guys about the client server three-way handshake also? That is, it's a self-explanatory, guys. Okay.
Yes, sir.
The next thing what we do is in information gathering, we do is a normal port scanning. Now, for port scanning, we can use Nmap, we can use Rust scan, we can use ZenMap, or we can use AMUS. Now, please pay attention. This is very noisy if you use some of its advanced features. This guy is super duper noisy, but the noise can be cancelled. I mean, not cancelled. The noise can be reduced. This guy is the brother or sister of Nmap. So same way, but it's a GUI based. AMAS is very noisy. Okay, never use AMAS if you're doing what do you say testing without the client's concern. Then never use AMAS. AMAS का एक disadvantage ये भी है कि AMAS will create logs or can also disrupt the target machine. That is, it will keep on sending so many packets that the target machine might also freeze. Okay. So throughout the curriculum and throughout the testing phase, we'll be only using these two types of scanning, which is basically completely CLI based scanning. Okay.
Yes.
Yes or no? Yeah.
Yes.
Then the next thing is, we need to check. We need to check whether the firewalls are blocking our packets or not. So we need to check whether the firewalls check is blocking, and how can we bypass it also. So we can use something called as ARP. ARP stands for, anyone knows?
Address resolution protocol.
Address resolution protocol. The reason why we have this address resolution protocol is once the three-way handshake is done, there is something called as an ARP table in every one system, or even the routers, even in the computers, even in the target computer, everywhere. ARP table is there. So in this particular table, what happens is basically you can consider it to be a cached data, CACHED, cached data. Okay. When first time the authentication is done, it is done. It will take time. But next time, when the communication is established, there won't be any authentication because everything will be registered or everything will be there in the ARP table. So we use ARP to check in the host discovery also, not host discovery, in the normal information gathering. Now this happens during the pre exploitation phase. That is, you have entered the organization, and from there you want to check. Now this plays very important role: firewall bypassing and checking. Because when you saw, right, my Kali Linux ka firewall also was blocking the request from my Windows machine. Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
And yeah, then we have Nmap. Nmap has a very huge matlab, vast data interface. So I'll brief you guys about Nmap first. So Nmap is nothing but network mapper. It is used by everyone, even in for red teaming. Also, I use it personally because I love it using. So Nmap has multiple ways. By default, Nmap will always do your host discovery. By default, yes, it will do it. It will see. It will check whether your host is alive or dead. If it is dead, then why will the host bother? I mean, why will the Nmap bother to do the scanning? Because at the end, the result is gonna be zero, right? It will save your time. So if you want to escape this host discovery, then you can use this function called as -pn. One second. -pn. So this will disable the host discovery. That is the first phase. Next is Nmap will perform. Sorry, this was first part. Nmap will perform three types of port scanning. One is it will check if the port is open, if the port is closed, or if it is filtered. Yes. So open port means it is completely open. You can do n number of stuff. Closed ports, usually it will always show you open and filter. Earlier ones, when I used to use mmap versions 5, version 6 and all, that time it used to show you like the closed ports also. Then we have something called a filtered port. Filtered port you can try to exploit, but it won't give any assurity. Then we have something called as port scanning. Here, what happens is you use an argument called as -p. You can mention the port. You can, if you want to perform only single port, or you want to perform a range of ports, or if you want to perform just two different types of ports or specific ports in that particular range also, like 1000, 443/1000. Or if you want to perform a range of what I told you, right? But by default, what happens is if you don't mention -p, it will scan from 1 to 65,534 ports. Sorry, 534 ports. Okay. Yes. Then the next thing that we have is IP addresses or our host or the domain. See, guys, remember one thing. When you're mentioning domains now, please remember your subdomains are not considered. Okay, you cannot mention a subdomain here. For subdomain, we have other type of scanner which is called AMAS. AMAS allows you to do subdomain scanning. But what I mean by subdomain is there are two types of domains. Okay, one is a normal domain. It can be example.com, or we have abc/example.com, right? But there is one more type of domain where we have abc.example.com. So this is allowed. This is allowed, but this is not allowed. Okay.
Yes.
So this was about the host. Now for the IP address, what happens is you can give the entire range of IP address, for example, 10.10.1.20 to 25. So it will scan from 2 to 25 IP address. Or if you want to give a specific subdomain also, I mean subdomain, or you can say specific network. So 2.0 from 1 to 254, you cannot mention like this. What you can do is you can just say 0/24. So whatever is there from 0 to 250, 1 to 250, 4 IP addresses will be scanned here. Okay. So this is one way of mentioning the port numbers also, like specific range of ports if you want to do. Then the next type of scan, we have something called as an aggressive scan. Aggressive scan, please remember, like I mentioned, it's a noisy tool. If you use aggressive scan, it will create more and more noise in the target. So your network administrator team will easily come to know that, okay, fine, there was some security assessment testing was going on. Okay, so the argument is called -a. Next thing, what I mentioned, you guys remember, that is about the firewall. So we need to bypass the firewall also. We can say bypassing the firewall slash intrusion detection systems, IDS, or IPS also, intrusion prevention systems, or we can say EDRs also, or let's say these three things. How we can do that is, the only way to do that is we need to fragment the packets. So the command to do that is -min -rate, and you can say 1000. It depends. Okay. But by default, it's always 1000. You cannot go below that. If you go below that now, then just consider that your scanning will take years and years. Okay. If you have patience to do that also. But the more lesser number you put, the more better results. It will take time, but more time. And the higher number you put, that is above 1000, will give more of false positivity, I can say. but less time. Yes, you understood.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now Nmap can also perform a UDP scan. By default, it will only perform your TCP scans. Uh, if I'll show you guys in the once we start solving the lab today, we'll finish with all this normal stuff. Okay. So to perform a UDP scan, now we have this argument called as -su. SEO will help you to create UDP scan. Now, UDP protocol, we know it's a connectionless protocol. So when we are doing testings, we always ask the client, sir, what are your types of ports and which port number or which target, I mean, which IP address is specifically for broadcasting or specifically for static pages or block pages. Because for them, what happens is when you say block pages, the block pages doesn't have very much critical information, right? It doesn't have very much critical information that that a hacker can penetrate through, like some injection attacks and all. Because static pages पे क्या होता है कि they just put it there and it's like a newspaper. It's just there. You cannot do anything else like that. So -su is used for UDP scanning. Now coming to by default, it will do TCP scan. If not, then we need to mention this also. So we use this command called as -st. -st will do your TCP scanning. Okay. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So this is like a basic what I'm telling you guys. Now there are multiple approaches where we can do. Then the next thing is uh, version detections. So based on the open ports, the type of services that are running, we can still identify the version using -sv command. -sv command will tell you multiple things. Like with the help of versions, also you can find the exploits. If you have done CTF, then this particular command to use KI hoga. Then we have something called as OS scan. OS can never do it, okay, guys, but I'm teaching you. We never know when it can be useful. So this will tell you the type of operating system. But the only problem is it is going to be completely false positive. That is, it will tell you it's a Linux system, but what type of Linux system, it won't tell you. 100% to nahi batayega aapko. It won't tell you. Okay. Yes. But
Sir.
there is one more way also where you can grab multiple things. But this is one way of telling. Now, please remember, when I'll just show you, okay, I'll open my CMD. This is one hint, okay, this is one thing, okay, which I'm going to tell you. So this is 8.8.8, okay, -c5. Okay, I need user privileges. Let's say google.com, okay, I'm saying google.com -c5. Okay, wait, I'll show you properly in Linux, okay? Just a second, huh? Now, with the help of ping, we can also identify whether the system is Linux or whether the system OS is Linux or whether the system Linux is Windows. Okay, so there is a way to identify using ping. You guys know how to do it? Aryan, do you know how to do it? With the help of ping. No? Okay, fine. I'll teach you. Okay. It's a very simple one. Nobody noticed it anytime. You guys can also try it out. Okay. This is very critical information if you are planning for OSCP and all. Okay. At times, your Nmap really ruins your OSCP ka scanning or even live testings environment or even CTF platforms also. I'll increase the size. If I say ping, Google dot, okay, what is happening? Take a second. Am I able to access the internet or not first on this? Yes, I am. Okay. We'll say scanme.nmap.org. Okay. I'll show you the magic. Mhm. Take a second. Huh? Okay, perfect. It's working. See, guys, see the output result. Okay. And then here also I'll do something like google.com. Let's see what Google has to offer for us. Okay. I'll try to do one more ping request to microsoft.com. Okay, and one more request. I'll do it to ping. This is one of a one person. I'll do one more request to some hack the box machine only. Wait. Okay, leave it. Why hack the box machine? We'll do it to my machine. 1.7. Okay. Now see the magic. Okay, what I'm going to explain. You guys there, right? Can anyone
Yes,
tell
sir.
me how can you identify whether the particular target is a Linux is using on a Linux machine or a Windows machine? See, I'm opening all the things here. Okay, it's very simple to identify.
Sir, maybe I think TTL server.
Yeah, TTL, correct. See, any TTL value which is less than 100, please note, any TTL value which is less than 100 is always Linux. And any TTL value which is above 100, it's a Windows machine. See, if you see this Microsoft is Windows, even my computer, my laptop, 127. This guy, Google.com is also using Windows, or maybe some of its servers are using Windows OS. And then you have this 57, right? So this is the best way to identify with the help of TTL. Okay. Yes, Aryan?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yeah. So TTL is nothing but time to travel. So basically, it is the time, the lesser the time TTL, the lesser the time is always taken by Linux, and the more the time is taken by Windows to authenticate and then tell you whatever it is. Okay. So TTL basically helps you to identify. So please remember ping function. If Nmap is not working and whatever happens, then TTL at least will tell you, will at least TTL will tell you that the operating system is Windows. Okay. So every time you cannot be dependent on an Nmap false positivity of the operating system, right? So you need to do a cross verification. So TTL is the best way to identify this particular thing. Is very useful during live testing and all, especially infrastructure internal testing. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So from tomorrow, not tomorrow, from Monday onwards, we'll start with the machines. Okay. So first we'll start with Windows Linux machine. In 2 days, we'll complete Linux. 3 days, we'll complete the Linux machine, that is privilege escalation, everything. And then we'll start with Windows machine. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So today's class now I won't drag much because unfortunately my material, my Linux is also gone mad. So I'll try to install Parrot on this particular thing and see how it is working. Yes. Any doubt, anyone?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No. Okay. Varad, any doubt?
No, sir.
Harsh, any doubt?
Yeah, no, sir, no doubts.
No. Okay. So I'm done with the class. We'll directly catch on Monday, and from Monday onwards, we'll start with the live machine with the machines. Okay. So for Linux machines, what I'll do is I'll give you some machine names. Try to use your virtual Oracle box, Oracle VirtualBox or VMware and install them. All these machines are available online only from one OS. So I'll share some machine names with you guys, and you guys can download and install it. Okay. And then we'll practically do step by step. First,
Okay,
we'll
sir.
try to do simple machines, and then we'll go for a tougher machine. In that machines only, we'll learn about the enumeration topics. Okay. Different ports, how we do the enumerations and everything. Because I don't want to verbally teach you everything now. Yes. So,
Yes, sir.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
guys. So Harsh and Varad, if you guys have any doubts or else you guys can leave. I need to talk to Aryan for a while.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Chalo, thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Aryan, for Active Directory, त्यांच्यासाठी Active Directory नाही. एक सेकंड ना. त्यांच्यासाठी ना Active Directory